LinkedIn is under hot water as apparently they've been scraping users' private messages for AI training. Now, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. People getting training data from weird sources that they shouldn't be getting it from is unfortunately a kind of a common thing in the AI realm. It just seems to happen. And this definitely seems like they've gotten under hot water with this one, so we're going to be covering it in today's video. Okay, so we're going to start off with this article by the BBC, LinkedIn accused of using private messages to train AI. Now, this US lawsuit was filed on behalf of LinkedIn Premium users, so it's like class action, I suppose, and it accuses the social media platform of sharing their private messages with other companies to train artificial intelligence AI models. Now, by the way, this lawsuit comes at a very, very, very interesting time because LinkedIn is a Microsoft backed company. LinkedIn is a Microsoft company. You know what else is a Microsoft company? OpenAI. Well, not directly, but they're very Microsoft backed. So, one thing to keep in mind here is that this is a new AI controversy that Microsoft's involved with, just as a Microsoft backed company, OpenAI, is like currently getting into a $500 billion project. I'm sure their lawyers are going to have a really fun time with this because this all comes at like the most inopportune time for them. I'm just saying, the timing on this is like interesting. So, it accuses that the platform was sharing their private messages with other companies to train AI models. It alleges that in August last year, the world's largest professional social networking website, which, yes, is true. If you have a professional career, chances are you're probably on LinkedIn. Um, it is just, it's kind of a necessary to working. You kind of have to be on it. And it alleges that it quietly introduced a privacy setting which automatically opted in users to a program that allowed third parties to use their personal data to train AI, which is also not the first. There's been times where AI companies have gotten data that they're not really supposed to use to train AI, but they've trained AI on it anyways. A long time ago, back in 2024, there was a whole controversy about people using like YouTube subtitles to train AI, and that was a whole thing that blew up out of proportion. Well, not out of proportion, but it just blew up. And there's also stuff about like pirated books, and it's a very common thing to like see certain AI companies coming under fire for like using weird sources to train their AI from. And sometimes it's not even directly their fault because some of the like training data sets aren't usually made by them, they're usually made by other companies. So it's not always their fault either, because having to index through like 2 terabytes worth of text data to find like copyrighted material is a little bit difficult. So it's not even always their fault, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I digress. Point being, it allowed third parties to use their personal data to train AI. It and the lawsuit, which I do have pulled up in a tab, so we're gonna look at it in a few minutes. The lawsuit alleges that it quietly introduced this feature and opted users into it automatically. And it also accuses Microsoft, the Microsoft-owned company rather, of concealing its actions a month later by changing its privacy policy to say that user information could be disclosed for AI training purposes. A LinkedIn spokesperson told BBC News that, quote, these are false claims with no merit. Well, I don't know if that's true or false. We shall see what how the lawsuit goes. Maybe they are false claims, but that is kind of a bold statement. I'd expect them to just say like no comment or just like not respond, but no, they're just saying these are false. These have no merit at all. So that's pretty bold. The filing also said LinkedIn changed its frequently asked questions section to say that users could choose not to share data for AI purposes, but that doing so would not affect training that had already taken place. Quote, LinkedIn's actions indicate a pattern of attempting to cover its tracks, the lawsuit said. This behavior suggests that LinkedIn was fully aware that it had violated its contractual promises and privacy standards and aimed to minimize public scrutiny. The lawsuit was filed in the California federal court on behalf of LinkedIn Premium users and all others in similar situation. It seeks $100 per user for alleged violations of the U.S. Federal Stored Communications Act, as well as an unspecified amount for breach of contract and California's unfair competition law. Ooh, boy. So, it's quite a big deal if you can't already tell. They are under some pretty hot water with this one. So, what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and cover the actual lawsuit itself, because I was able to grab the document for you guys. So, we're going to go ahead and read through it a little bit. Okay, so this is the lawsuit. So this was filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. It was filed by this person. Well, this person's the plaintiff anyways. And so this person individually and on behalf of all other similarly situated, and v. LinkedIn Corporation, a Delaware corporation defendant. So, long story short, they're currently complaining over violation of these three things: the violation of the Stored Communications Act, the breach of contract, and violation of California's unfair competition law. So here's my thing. One, the California unfair competition law basically states, hey, don't do false and misleading advertising. That's the long story short. What I'm confused on, and I'm not a lawyer, by the way, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but what I'm confused on is it's a Delaware company. If it's a Delaware company, then do California laws apply to the Delaware company? I don't know. I don't know how that would exactly work. So, okay, not sure about that one. The violation of the Stored Communications Act is an interesting one. Long story short, it is a federal law that addresses voluntary and compelled disclosure of, quote, stored wire and electronic communications and transactional records held by third-party ISPs. So now what you have to start asking is, does this apply to a company like LinkedIn? Because they don't technically qualify as an ISP. Microsoft, on the other hand, could qualify as an ISP, namely because they do have their own chunk of the internet. They, for not without getting into like nerdy speak, they have what is known as an autonomous system, which means they are registered with the appropriate agencies that handle internet stuff, the appropriate nonprofits that handle that sort of thing. So technically, Microsoft could be considered an ISP. LinkedIn, on the other hand, I don't know. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Take what I say with a grain of salt. But these specific listed violations might be a little iffy. So they're also demanding a jury trial. That doesn't surprise me. And long story short, it's exactly like said in the BBC article. They're basically saying LinkedIn breached its contractual promises by disclosing its premium customers' private messages to third parties to train generative artificial intelligence models. One of their key pieces of evidence here is also this little thing here saying in August 2024, LinkedIn quietly introduced a new privacy setting to its settings menu shown below right here, which ostensibly allowed users to enable or disable the sharing of their personal data for the purpose of training generative AI models. And it says right here, data for generative AI improvement. Can LinkedIn and its affiliates use your personal data and content you create on LinkedIn to train generative AI models that create content? And then it's set to on. They're saying that the setting is enabled by default. As to whether or not there's actual proof of it being enabled by default, I don't know. But they're saying for everybody it was just enabled by default. On September 18th, multiple news outlets reported on this new privacy setting and questioned a LinkedIn spokesperson as about why LinkedIn had not disclosed this sharing of users' personal data for generative AI training in its terms of service. LinkedIn responded with the statement, "We'll be sharing an update on our terms of service with our members shortly." On the same day, LinkedIn discreetly updated its privacy policy, adding a description of its processing of user data for generative AI purposes. So, long story short, they're basically saying, hey, you turned on this setting, you didn't put it in your terms of service, illegal. that's at the end of the day, that's what they're saying. As to whether or not it's going to go through, I don't know. I actually just don't know. The specific violations at hand that they're trying to say I mean, maybe they're valid, maybe they're not. Again, technically LinkedIn doesn't qualify as an ISP unless I am completely misinterpreting the law. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but like they're not an ISP and they're also not in California, so I don't know if California laws specifically apply. So, eh, I don't I don't really know how that works. So, I don't know. I guess we'll just see what happens. Maybe something will come of this, or maybe this will just be one of those specific law cases that just kind of get thrown to the wayside, get dismissed. Nobody ever talks about it ever again. I have no clue. We'll see what happens. Again, it is very interesting time that this happens because it's a Microsoft company, and what else is a Microsoft company? OpenAI. At least they're very heavily Microsoft backed and Microsoft dependent. So at this rate, they kind of are a Microsoft company. So I don't know. Interesting timing for all of this. So thank you guys for watching my video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you want to watch more videos, you can check them out right over here. Like, comment, subscribe. Take care, you guys. Stay safe out there.